Hello and welcome to Clipping In. It's Monday, the 8th of July, and this is the story of the incredible shrinking bride. Yes, it's a lovely sunny morning, Monday, about 15 Celsius, and after a weekend where it was a complete blank for cycling, Saturday and Sunday didn't get out at all. I thought today I'd at least borrow an hour and a half. That's how it goes sometimes. I think when I first had to start rejigging my plans for this year in terms of long, spectacular rides in the Dales in favour of Pennine rides and sometimes local circuits, I thought, there's nothing to post. They've either been on the channel before or they're not spectacular enough. No U-shape glacial valleys in the Dales where the ancient Norsemen once walked. And so I went quiet. I thought there's nothing to post. But then after 4 or 5 weeks of not posting anything, and after some good feedback on a comeback video, I thought, no, actually, I think the majority of us have to. We're in a position where we can't ring fence 15 hours a week of cycling time and nothing shall encroach upon it. I think we all have to work within a shifting network of obligations and commitments and restrictions. And for that reason I thought, well, like I said at the time of the Sub 2 series, the reality is that shorter local rides are often, you know, the backbone of what we do. Of course, those time restrictions don't apply to some people, you know, maybe the retired or millionaire playboys. I know this channel is exceptionally popular amongst millionaire playboys. When you are very short a time, then often the best bang for buck in a training sense is turbo. Getting on the indoor trainer, and it's all go, go, go. There isn't any padding. You're not waiting at roadworks or junctions or anything like that. So in terms of training for performance, you can't beat the turbo any time of day, etc. But if you're not a pure performance rider, then it's a little bit more complicated, and this feel-good factor that we've spoken about before comes into play with outdoor riding. You get your cycling kit on, you wheel the bike out, give it 10-15 minutes to make that transition into a cycling mindset, and that's when the benefits start. You know, you feel the wind, you can feel today the sunshine, all that vitamin D, and the feel-good factor starts to kick in. And that's something that very difficult to get inside. I've said before that I do feel quite lucky living around here, because as well as having the Dales reasonably accessible and the Pennines more accessible, all those great hills, I've also got some more than passable green space, little circuits in my back garden almost. And certainly compared to some places I've lived, I realise how lucky I am. But I think that, as I said often as the introduction to each of those sub 2 hour series, you make that transition, you get into a cycling mindset, and even with an hour or an hour and a half, you come back feeling a heck of a lot better about yourself and about the world than when you set off. Hartshead Church, the association with Patrick Bronte, it was his parish before moving out to Thornton and later Haworth. There's some real history behind this place though, much older than the Brontes. There's an ancient yew tree, which you can probably see there, and they think that this was a site, a religious site, long before Christianity arrived on these isles. Fantastic view of the High Pennines there. Wow, love it. So I'm on the road between Clifton Village and Hartshead Church, this being the M62, not far from Hartshead service station and all that. But when you've ridden on for a couple of 100 metres, you can't hear the motorway and everything's back to being green and idyllic. Let's have a little micro halt for another look at the church and that yew tree that I mentioned. We can probably zoom in on that. This church will be, I think, mid-19th century, so it wouldn't have looked like this when Patrick Bronte was there, but this was his parish. How's that for a view? Hold it still and you can see Holmmoss, and then just pan through a few degrees and you can see Emley Moor mast. Yeah, the feel-good factor has kicked in. Just before I get properly rolling again, I thought I deliberately chose the incredible Shrinking ride with reference to that late 50s science fiction film, and also a novel of called The Shrinking Man, which was just before. And behind all that sort of golden era science fiction, you've got an allegory of someone shrinking and losing their place in society, as increasingly the man, the title character, feels threatened by objects that previously he towered over and didn't pay any attention to. This sort of diminishing self-esteem and value in society, American sort of suburban 50s America in the case of the film. And I thought that was an interesting parallel with what I was saying about rides getting shorter in the hurly-burly of social media, when everybody else seems to be going faster or further or getting out more often. And unless you're very careful, if you get drawn into that world of performance metrics or just comparing things on a quantitative basis, it's easy to feel your value of the rides diminishing. I mentioned Strava Noia 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I think it feeds in to that. God dear me, it's getting like Barry Norman will be presenting this next, won't he? There's 2 lots of roadworks on my little circuit, so I'm going to change now ahead, climb up to Robert Town, and I'm going to shift across towards Gomersall to another little circuit. See you in a while. Now that's a place you can't check out of. Just passing through Birkenshaw, the big West Yorkshire Fire Service. I think that's the main headquarters, just on there to the left. About another mile on main roads, and then I'm onto small, yellow, unclassified again. Regular viewers will know that by now I've linked across to the Cliff Hollins circuit. It goes between Oakenshaw and East Biley. We'll get some good panorama type views opening up when I get to the top of this next steep section. Long time favourite of mine, this circuit. In just over 4 miles, I think there's 500 feet of climbing. I know that if I do 10 laps from home, I've got 5,000 feet. But it's also a fairly quiet road for the most part. Lovely stuff. Now behind me we should be able to see the Pennines stretched out. To my right you might catch Emley Moor if I hold my camera up at the Statue of Liberty. and then behind will be the Pennines, maybe with a glimpse of Home Moss. Into the last mile or so, so it's about time to sign off. It's been a cracking little ride, ticked all the boxes of getting back feeling better than when you set off. The rides might be shrinking, but the feel-good factor is undiminished, and that's what counts. See you again back out on those Yorkshire roads very soon for another edition of Clipping In. Bye bye.